Alrighty, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy WhiteAlbum here. Welcome back to some more Witch on the Holy Night. Last time we left off, I think the girls, I think they found Sojiro shirtless after he took a bath or some shit like that, and they were absolutely mesmerized. I mean, you saw Alice; she was just gone. Well, with that being said, let's get into it, man. You already know me. I got my water next to me to keep my wet all whistled. What? My whistle all wet is what I was trying to say there. But here we go. I think this is where we left off, so I won't have to actually. Let's see. Oh, yeah, it's the same thing. Okay, perfect. All right, here we go. Early the next morning, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Most people were still asleep in their beds, or were still in their beds sleeping. Not for me. I wake up like 4:30 in the morning just to get ready for work. That's fun. Although some 24-hour convenience stores had opened last year, Masaki Town was still very much living in the good old days of the early 80s. Even the tofu shop in the shopping district, known for opening earlier than anywhere else, didn't open until 6. But this was the late 80s, during the latter half of Japan's bubble economy. It was a time when the metropolitan areas never slept. Those in the countryside, however, remained in the past. The homes were blanketed in silence. The streets were empty of commuters, and not a single automobile could be heard. The sun was just barely peeking over the horizon. The town would still be asleep for at least an hour longer before it began waking up. It was during this time that someone stepped onto the Kowonji estate. Sojiro was working the late night shift during winter vacation and just come home. He moved quietly through the drawing room so he wouldn't wake up Aoko and Alice, who were presumably still asleep. The Kowonji estate had a few established rules. One of those rules forbade more Japanese tea. Wait, what? Forbade more? Like, so... Oh, I mean, that makes sense, right? Alice's family comes from... Well, no, technically, Alice's family does originate from Japan. They just moved... I guess one of her ancestors moved to England and was like, yeah, this is where we're staying. And then I think they only came back as a recent, if I remember from last episode, I think. So, it would make sense why I think she would prefer English tea compared to Japanese tea. This new rule had only came in effect 3 days prior. It was proposed after Alice saw Sojiro drinking green tea in the kitchen after dinner one night. Is that a thing?
Oh?
Looking back on it, the decision had been made rather abruptly. The single gasp of surprise was all Alice said. She grabbed her head as she was battling the most vicious of migraines, called for Aoko, and then made the decision to ban all Japanese teas from this mansion. So. Damn, I feel like that ban was racially motivated, Alice. What is that? Don't remember, don't forget where you come from, little lady. And besides, green tea is delicious, bro. I love green tea. Like actual brewed green tea. That shit's great. By some miracle, Aoko managed to negotiate and keep Sojiro's privileges to barley tea drinking. What? No, to barley tea during the summer. Damn, I fucked that one up.
だいたいイギリス産だって初めはグリーンティーが主流だったじゃない。
Even the British only drank green tea at first, you know. Aoko had clearly hit a nerve with this argument. Aoko stared at Alice, barely certain why she was so taken aback by Sojiro's actions. Alice was like,
そこまで
look.
嫌がらなくてもな。お茶は何だって美味しいのに。
Alice was like, look, my man is not going to be drinking that fucking low-life, unworthy green tea, okay? He's going to be drinking that fine, what is it, Earl Grey, there you go, so I was trying to say, that Earl Grey English tea, okay? He's not going to be drinking this shit, alright? He's drinking this, and I said so. Okay, here, let's get back. I don't get why it's such a big deal. Tea is good no matter what kind it is. Sojiro grumbled to himself while sipping his hot green tea. He didn't realize that Alice was upset because they had poured his green tea into a teacup meant for black tea. Oh my god, how pompous is Alice, dog? He poured green tea into a teacup that's meant for black tea. A cup is a fucking cup, okay? I mean, I understand that some beverages have certain, glassware that they're contained, like wine. You have a wine glass, you have a whiskey glass, you have shots. I get that, but like a normal cup, you could use anything in, like juice, water, soda, pop if you're that person. Tea, normal fucking iced tea. Like, what the hell? Like, a coffee cup and a teacup in my household are the exact same thing. Okay, here we go. Enough rambling. In Sojo's defense, this was the only teacup that Alice had given him permission to use. At any rate, the early morning was his to enjoy. This was his moment to relax with a Japanese tea set he smuggled in. Or tea set that he smuggled in, there you go. He didn't use his time to read books or watch TV. He drank his tea and gazed fondly at the garden, or rather, the dense wood outside. Sojiro simply sat, relaxed, and let his mind wander. About an hour passed. Just as he was beginning to feel refreshed, he heard sounds coming from the foyer. He knew it was Aoko and Alice talking, so he rushed to hide his teacup, teapot, and tea leaves in the kitchen. Hiding the contraband was easy enough, considering just how many unused shelves there were in the kitchen. Sojiro was perturbed by how they wasted the potential of such a splendid kitchen. I mean, they don't really do shit.
早いのね、宗十郎。
Bro, they had that big ass kitchen, and yet they buy takeout food. What are you talking about? Oh, you're up early, Sojiro. Aoko spoke as she took off her white down jacket? Why can't you say white jacket? Okay. Next to her, Alice silently took off her black coat.
いや、今帰ってきたんだ。天城浜の食品工場に深夜のパートで入ることになって、その帰り。
No, I just got home actually. I started working the late shift at the food factory over in Amagihama. Sojiro stuck his head out from the kitchen and gestured that he was about to put on some water to boil. Alice tilted her head slightly at him. Oh no, she knows. Not like this. It wasn't that she thought his gesturing was funny or anything like that.
天城浜から
Yes. Alice glanced up at the clock in the drawing room, and her expression darkened.
どうしたのアリス。
What's wrong, Alice? Aoko asked this from her comfortable seat on the sofa.
別に。
Nothing. Alice responded indifferently before finally sitting down as well.
宗十郎、砂糖は一杯だけだからね。
Sojiro, just one spoon of sugar, remember? Aoko yelled her matter-of-fact request into the kitchen. Sojiro didn't respond, but it was an affirmative silence. This was the result of 2 entire nights worth of cramming that Alice knew about.
アリ
Oh,
ス
the
は
study session? What about you, Alice?
私はミルクだけでいいけど。
I'll have mine with milk. Alice responded out of obligation.
了解、ミルクティーだね。
Tea with milk. Got it. I never had tea with milk. I always just drank it straight like that. Maybe a little honey, but with straight milk, I don't think so. For some reason, Sojiro dutifully answered Alice's request. Damn, uh-oh.
ま、いいけど。いちいち突っ込んでたらキリがないし。
She's like, oh, well, fuck you too then, asshole. Fine. I'd get sick of his voice if he replied every time anyway.
それより珍しいじゃない。アリスがティーバッグのお茶飲むなんて。
Anyway, isn't it pretty rare for you to be drinking tea from a tea bag, Alice?
今日は疲れたから。たまには。
I'm just tired today. I thought I might as well. It seems she had allowed herself to accept another's kindness, at least for today.
ふーん。ま、いいか。それより宗十郎。
If you say so. More importantly, Sojiro,
あんた、さっきおかしなこと言わなかった？
didn't you say something weird earlier?
え、別に言ってないぞ、そんなこと。
Huh? No, I don't think so.
そうならいいんだけど。
Oh, I could have sworn you said something. The two were conversing over a distance of 4 yards. Alice decided to add her opinion to the conversation.
しずきくんがおかしなことを言わない日はないと思うわ、私。
I don't think there's a day that has ever gone by when he hasn't said something weird, to be honest. Her quiet tone was luckily just low enough that Sojiro couldn't hear her from the kitchen.
そりゃそうだけど、今ちょっと変だったでしょ？
I agree. But seriously, wasn't he talking kind of strangely just now? He was just talking about how he came back from work. Oh, are they onto him that he was actually there earlier than he implied?
いや、何が引っかかったのかまではわからないんだけどさ。
I don't know exactly how to describe it.
そうね。会話自体は普通だったけれど、内容を考えてみると、どこかおかしいわね。
True. The conversation itself was normal, but something did seem off about what he was saying. Ako became gradually more irritated as she failed to grasp what had been odd about the conversation. Just then, Sojiro appeared holding a tray with a teacup for each of them.
何を話してるんだ？単に新しいアルバイトを始めただけだろ。
What are you guys talking about? I literally just said I started a new part-time job, that's all. He put the cups down on the black table without making even the slightest sound. Alex couldn't complain about how proper his job as a waiter had made him. While she didn't say anything out loud, she did nod in his direction to show some gratitude. Oko, however,
天城浜だっけ？あそこってスタジアムがあるところでしょ？ツアーの会場になるから時々行くけど。
Amagihama, was it? There's a huge stadium over there that I go to sometimes when a band I like is on tour. The student council president, a supposed model student, loved rock bands. Alko was secretly obsessed with the number of bands and used to travel way out of town just to see them perform live when she was in middle school. Of course, this was a world that Sojiro was far from familiar with.
それより、また新しいバイト始めたんだ。そんなに働いてどうする気なのよ、宗十郎は。
Anyway, I can't believe you started what? Sorry, I was like trying to swallow water and I fucked up. Almost choked. Anyway, I can't believe you started yet another part-time job. What are you trying to accomplish working that hard, Sojiro? I'm trying to get the fuck out of here, Aoko. That's what I'm trying to do. The fuck?
ああ、よく聞いてくれたね。
Oh, you were listening.
本人の名誉のために名前は伏せるけど、誰かさんと誰かさんが俺の少ない収入を無慈悲に奪っていくから、働く先を増やしたんだ。
Damn. He just called them out. Well, I have to work more because there are a couple of people in my life who like to take all my money from me for every little thing you can imagine. There was so much resistance as Sojiro was able to give. Aoko lifted her teacup to her mouth as she was completely oblivious to Sojiro's monologue.
それは大変ね。
She hit him with the, man, that sounds rough, buddy. Sounds rough. Alice said this as she set her teacup down quietly. There was something she just did not understand. Aoko had to hold back her laughter as she looked at Alice and Sojiro.
はあ、言った自分が未熟だった。
I should have known better to say anything. Sojiro's shoulders fell as he said this. He took a sip of his black tea, still unsure about the taste.
ま
It's alright.
あ、アルバイトが多いって
Pervert
分か
green
って
tea.
くれるだけでいい
Ironically
か。
enough. As long as you know I'm working a lot, I guess that's fine.
そういったわけだから、冬休み中は夜も留守にする。例の薬はアルバイト先で飲むしかないんだけど。
So that means I'll have to be away at night during winter vacation. I'll have to take those pills at work though.
ああ、それなら心配いらないわ。もうあれはやめたから。
Oh, those? Don't worry about that. I'm done with those.
いちいち作るのも面倒だし、もっとしずきくんに似合うのを見つけてきたの。
They were a pain to make, and I found something more suitable for you anyway. Alko had a huge, anonymous grin on her face. She put her hand into her jacket pocket and pulled out a little paper bag. It was a small circular object about 20 inches in diameter, wrapped up nicely like a present.
はい、これは入居祝い。これからはそれをつけておくのよ、宗十郎。
Here's a little something to celebrate your moving in here. I want you to wear that from now on, Sojiro. Celebrate? Yeah, I wouldn't call forcing this man to live with you guys as a celebration, but whatever. Sojiro opened the paper bag. Inside was a white belt. But it wasn't a belt for putting around your waist or to keep your pants up. Like a martial arts white belt? That's the only other belt I would know. Oh. To put it as clearly as possible, it was a collar.
青子。
Alice's expression darkened at this turn of events. But it wasn't clear whether it was her friend's insidiousness or sympathy for Sojiro that concerned her.
どう？気に入った？
So, what do you think? Alka was clearly a little crazy. At least she wasn't totally serious. It was obvious that it was at least half a prank to see how Sojiro would react. But, oh, don't tell me this motherfucker puts that shit on. Sojiro was solemnly considering the collar he had just been gifted.
うん。意味はつかみかねるけど、こういうものを人からもらうのは、これが初めてだ。
Oh, somebody's car alarm just went off. I'm not exactly sure what this means, but it's the first time anyone has given me something like this. He actually sounded like this would be a happy memory for him. Happy memory. There you go. Alice narrowed her eyes at what was transpiring.
けど、これは何に使うんだ？
But, what exactly am I supposed to use this for?
簡単よ。金庫寺と同じで、飼い犬が主人に逆らうと首を絞めるの。あっちは頭につけてたけど、それよりは首のがマシでしょ？
It's simple. It's like the golden headband in the Journey to the West, Wukong. Wukong had to wear it if he had stepped out of line, though this you would wear around your neck like a dog collar. Also, it's like a shot collar. Let me guess, if he wears that and he goes outside like a magical boundary, that shit fries him. I could definitely see that being the case. Or it's just a normal dog collar for, his sake. Sojiro grimaced when he finally understood Aoko's mean-spirited gift. He really wanted to ask her what kind of person comes up with such an evil idea. It's Aoko, dog.
つまり、秘密をばらしたり逆らったりしたら首が締まると。
So basically, if I divulge any secrets or disobey you, then that collar will choke me. Is that right?
やっぱり熱でもあるんじゃないのか、青崎は。
Are you sure you're feeling well, Ozaki?
あら、首輪は嫌？せっかく宗十郎に似合いそうなものを見つけたのに。
Oh, you do not like it? I tried to pick out what I thought would suit you best. Aoko still had an evil grin on her face. But Sojiro had a surprising response to this gift that Aoko had clearly gotten as a prank.
それもそうか。毎日毒を飲むよりはマシだし、このベルト自体いいものだし。
I guess you're right. I mean, it's better than it's better than taking poison every day. And this belt itself looks well made.
うん、気に入った。ありがとう、青崎。
I actually like it. Thank you, Ozaki. Oof. Foiled again. Bamboozled. That's the face of someone who just got fucking owned. He spoke 100% truthfully. There it is. Aoko's face contorted in disbelief, and she could only mumble if he was serious.
人の行為はどんなものだって嬉しいよ。
I'm happy about any act of kindness. What a weird way of saying that.
それに、それが青崎ならなおさらだ。
Even more so when it's from you, Ozaki. And with that, Sojiro put the belt around his neck. He placed it over the bandages He placed it over the bandages already there.
こんな感じかな？きついけど、そのうち慣れるだろう。
I guess this works. It's a little tight, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. Despite his words to the contrary, Sojiro tugged at the belt uncomfortably and adjusted it. It was such a perverse scene that Aoko's face was red as a beet, even though that this had been her idea. Perhaps it was because it gave her such a clear reminder of the scars she had seen the day before.
よし。止め方はこれでいいのか？
Okay? Is it on right?
ね、
Aoko retreated guiltily. Fuck. They be giving me words that I'm just like not ready to fucking pronounce. Aoko retreated guiltily as Sojiro came closer for her to check on the fit of his new collar.
黙ってちゃわからないのに。
If you don't say anything, how will I know if it fits right?
いいよ。アリスに聞くから。
It's okay. I'll just ask Alice. Sojiro shifted his gaze from Aoko to Alice. Alice stared intently at Sojiro wearing his new collar and said,
ロックね。青子、趣味に走りすぎよ。
Punk rock. Aoko, stop trying to dress him how you want him to look. She couldn't even put it any more bluntly.
いや、やかましい、そんなんじゃない。
Shut up! That's not what I was trying to do!
もういい。とにかくそういうことよ。これからはその首輪が薬の代わりよ。せいぜい秘密を守ることね。
Just ignore her. From now on, that collar replaced those pills I was giving you. Just don't go divulging any of our secrets. Aoko was oddly empathetic as she spoke before stomping off toward the hallway.
それと、これからお昼まで仮眠を取るけど、くだらないことで起こしたら殺すから。
I'm gonna go take a nap until lunch. If you wake me up for any stupid reason, I will murder you. Damn, bro, she got fucking owned. She got owned so hard. She was like, hey, yeah, I got him. I could make this moron wear a collar. He's gonna look stupid. And this man said, thanks, I like it, you know? Bro, get Chad Sojiro, bro. We love him here. We stand this man in this household. I love it too. Not so much. Aoko slammed the door behind her as she left the drawing room. Sojiro stared in amazement.
なんで青崎はいつもいきなり怒るんだろ
I'll never understand why she gets so mad like that all of a sudden. He murmured to himself, forgetting that Alice was standing right there in front of him.
しずきくんには悪意が通じないからでしょう。気にする必要はないわ。
I assume it's because her ill intent doesn't seem to get through to you. I wouldn't worry about it if I were you, though.
悪意って今のが
Ill intent. What? Just now? Alice looked up at Sojiro's innocent response. There was a glimmer in her eyes that showed surprise at her current actions.
なんでもないから気にしないで。
It's nothing. Don't worry about it. With that terse reply, she returned to her usual expressionless self. There was no use explaining Aoko's feelings. Aoko brought that collar from the sole purpose of annoying Sojiro and causing mischief. When things didn't turn out as she had planned, her conscience got the better of her. Sojiro mistakenly thought that Aoko was angry at him, when in reality she was angry only at herself. Alice didn't bother telling Sojiro all these heartwarming details, though. Not because it was too much work, just because she was never one to have meaningless conversation. That was how she had been raised.
しずきくんはこれからどうするの？
So, what are your plans for the rest of the day, Suzuki? Work, probably? The fuck? Alice suddenly changed the topic. Sojiro thought for a while before replying.
夕方までゆっくりするよ。ここのところ忙しすぎた。
I'm just gonna relax until the evening. I've been way too busy recently.
せっかくだからテレビも見ていたいし、お昼には青崎を起こさないといけないだろ。
I want to watch some TV since we have to wake up Ozaki at lunchtime, right?
そう。なら静かにしていて。
Right. Just keep it quiet then. Alice let out a gentle sigh and rose to her feet. Just keep it quiet. Sojiro would understand exactly what she meant by those words in just a few minutes. We just fucking hear Aoko just fucking snoring up a storm. The sun shining through the window was bright. It was just about 9 o'clock. About time for the morning television programs to get going. Sojiro was sitting on the sofa, staring out the window at the scene outside. The view from the neighboring sunroom showed a courtyard in a state of disrepair. Do you guys see the top part? What is happening here? What a weird effect they got going on here. That shit really just like, I'm sorry, that distracted me way too much. Okay. Sojiro could appreciate the outdoors in both its natural wild state and when tamed by human hands.
あれは近いうちになんとかせねばなるまい。
I really need to do something about that sometime soon. Sojiro muttered to himself, turning another page in his textbook. On the table before him was a mathematics textbook and a notebook with Aoko's name on it. Although at first glance he appeared to be a diligent student studying on his day off, he was in truth only doing so as a compromise. He had given up on his main intent of watching the morning television shows. The reason why he gave up was simple. He was being considerate of Alice, who sat in front of him with her nose buried in a book. Instead of holding herself up in her room, she brought out her old dusty books to read. What the fuck, she reading, like Amityville Horror? Or something that has to do with like magic. Probably that, right? This was what she meant when she had said to keep quiet. Sojiro found it difficult to turn on the TV.
とりあえず
Fucking
しばらく
Sanny.
テレビは控えよ
Sanny, baby. I fucking love it. I guess I won't be watching TV for a while. With that decided, Sojiro resigned himself to reviewing some of the practice problems he had gotten wrong, and the drawing room for some reason. There wasn't any particular purpose in doing it there, but he also had no real reason to study back up in his room. And so there he was, leisurely highlighting his textbook with Alice there in the same room. To Sojiro, there was really no difference between his room in the attic and the drawing room with Alice. To be fair, he could probably live with a tiger as long as it didn't cause any trouble. That was both Sojiro's biggest strength and his biggest weakness. Before he knew it, the clock was showing 11. He spent 2 hours doing his math problems, but wasn't even halfway finished. More than that, he was disappointed in himself for lacking the courage to speak up at all.
それに比べて青崎は頑張ってる
In comparison, Aozaki is really hardworking. He dropped the mechanical pencil into the notebook and watched it roll away. He knew that Aoko and Alice were busy with something since final exams had ended. He also knew that she had hardly gotten any sleep recently. If she had been able to ignore him during exams, she probably would have had an easier time. Today's nap was probably the first proper sleep Aoko had gotten in days, though she showed no signs of exhaustion despite the fact that she must have hit peak long ago. She always seemed raring to go. It wasn't that she was trying to act tough. That was just the kind of person she was, always positive, always tough as nails. And that was exactly why she came off as completely irrational at some times. But if that was the case, you could probably describe Alice in the exact same way. Sojiro couldn't help but feel a bit inadequate when he saw their single-minded focus on their goals. Sorry, my eyes went ahead of me there instead of my eyes couldn't catch up with my brain and I was jumbling my words there. He had been so preoccupied with adjusting to his new life that he had neglected to think about what he was doing with himself after. Thinking about this cast a gloomy cloud over his heart. He felt like he'd never find a clear purpose in life like Aoko and Alice seemed to have. At least, not since he had left the mountains. His old life was gone now, never to return. He was like a kite cut from his strings, destined to fly only where the winds took it. And without anything to ground him, he couldn't do anything about the empty future that lay ahead. He could only let himself fly where the currents took him, slowly losing sight of the ground below.
そうだな便利なものは溢れているけど本当に望むものは
There's all the conveniences you could ask for here, but nothing I truly desire. The town was full of options, but he could find nothing. He had asked himself the same questions time and time again. It never made him feel any better. If anything, it made him feel worse and worse. That, or maybe he felt that lamenting his own ineptitude, there you go. I got the word right, would lead to finding some kind of goal or desire someday. Tired of his own sniveling, Sojiro dejectedly closed his notebook. When he looked up, he saw his own face reflected back at him in the TV screen. His new collar was there around his neck, looking out of place as ever. Perhaps a fool like him who felt weak when faced with other strengths did need to wear a collar after all.
まったくだ 悩むのは一丁前になってから。
This is silly. I shouldn't worry about this until I'm actually an adult. Buddy, you're a more adult than the two that live with you, my guy. All right? What the hell? Yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. He shook he shook off his thoughts of doom and gloom and sat straight up. After psyching himself up for a little, he stood up from the sofa.
よし。何か作るけど、アリスは？
All right, I'm going to make some food. You want anything, Alice? Sojiro asked, casually. While Sojiro had been doing his own thing, he remained mindful of Alice. Alice looked up, surprised at hearing her name. She had completely forgotten Sojiro was even there.
私
Me?
ああ。アリス、朝から紅茶しか飲んでないだろ。どうせ作るなら、いっぱい作った方がお得なんだ。
He's like, no, the bird. Yeah, of course you, dummy. Yes, you. You've only had some tea all morning. If I'm going to be cooking, I might as well cook for everyone. Without waiting for her reply, Sojiro headed off to the kitchen while putting on his apron. Alice tried to wave at him to stop, but by then he had already disappeared into the kitchen. She was hesitant to walk all the way in there, just to tell him she didn't need anything. And besides, she was actually hungry. Sojiro's proposal made sense, and her empty stomach agreed. Alice was hungry, and Sojiro was going to make lunch. Making lunch for both of them would save the time and trouble of cooking two separate meals. There was no logical reason for Alice to refuse his gesture. She decided to stay quiet. Oh god, what is this word? And accepted his offer. I'll look that word up later. I probably won't. Don't listen to me.
変な人
He's so strange. He's the one that asked you for food, and you're just like, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. She whispered the words softly, not for anyone in particular to hear, but herself. My fucking mouth is so dry. The truth was, however, Alice had been in a bad mood all morning. After checking all the sigils around Masaki City and boarding the first train back to Takawa, all she wanted to do was spend the rest of her day reading until the words turned into a jumble. Her iron resolve was to complete this task would not be interrupted by someone else milling about in the drawing room. This was her mansion, and there was no way she was going to lock herself up in a room on account of Sojiro. However, with that said, she knew it would be wrong to kick Sojiro out for no real reason. As it stood, Sojiro had actually kept quiet like she asked. He wasn't in the wrong here. If Alice really wanted to be alone, she would have gone to her room.
静かにしてじゃなくて一人にさせてと言うべきだった
I should have told him to leave me alone, instead of just telling him to be quiet. Alice had defiantly stayed in the drawing room, despite realizing the dilemma she had put herself in. She had figured Sojiro would eventually make a ruckus and run off to hide in his attic room. Her assumption could not have been more wrong. Sojiro never left the drawing room. Moreover, she had actually stopped caring that he was there. Though he hadn't paid her any attention, he hadn't ignored her either. They had simply sat in silence together, without any awkwardness. Alice felt the freedom of being alone along the comfort of someone being beside her. To put into words, Sojiro was that kind of person. That was probably the only reason Alice had been able to sleep so soundly with him next to her there. With him next there to her. Sure. Sojiro continued cooking in the kitchen, oblivious to the thoughts that went through Alice's head. She could not see him from the drawing room, but she could easily imagine him cooking in the kitchen. Well, that's what I hope he's doing, right?
変な人ね本当に
He really is strange. Alice resumed reading after unwittingly stating her feelings aloud a second time. The sunlight beaming into the drawing room showed that it was noon. The sunlight actually looked warm, despite it being a cloudy winter day. Just as noon struck, Sojiro returned to the drawing room with two sets of plates. Some food of an indescribable color was piled onto the large cream-colored plates.
これは
This is wow, this is the first time I've heard music in like forever, dog. Like the last time I had music on was like the second episode of this playthrough, and I got fucking copyrighted because YouTube. So this is like the first time in like I think forever that I'm actually listening to music. She hadn't expected much, and since she hadn't requested anything, she could just refuse if there was something she didn't want. But this food left her at a loss for words despite psyching herself up.
これは何
What is this? Alice spoke as though she was terrified of what had been placed before her.
何って焼きうどんに何かかけてみた。
Huh? I just put some stuff on top of stir-fried udon noodles. Trying to see what is it. If Aoko had been there, she probably would have punched them. But Sojiro just confidently placed the 2 large plates on the table. That looks like a lot of shit. Was that mushrooms? Like bok choy? Random other shit? Steam bellowed from the mountain of food like an angry volcano ready to erupt at any moment. The thick mystery sauce flowed over the plates as magma might from said eruption. And below it were a seemingly infinite number of slimy tentacle-like noodles. There was really nothing more to say about it. This was clearly the food of a poor, struggling student who favored quantity over quality. All that was required was a basic recipe, the will to cook something, and a few ingredients were needed. The pile of stir-fried noodles with sauce slathered on top was so horribly bad, or horrifically bad, it almost was an art form. This was a bachelor's cooking, if she had ever seen it. There was nothing else you could call it. She had wondered what he was doing for an hour in there, and it turned out he'd been making the sauce. No sauce would have been fine, but Sojiro had wholeheartedly gone the extra mile. Sojiro bowed his head slightly and picked up his chopsticks. Or bowed, what to say. He had brought a fork for Alice. The shaky fucking fork is fucking great. Okay, I bet you, before I continue this, it's gonna be like, it looks like shit, doesn't look appetizing, but when she eats it, it's probably gonna be fucking mad tasty. I can already see that happening. Oh, hey, what are you doing, buddy? I don't know, my dog is next to me. Alright, here we go. She picked up the fork and stuck it into the noodles, halfway drowning in sauce. Sojiro began eating, not seeming to care that Alice was there looking like she had to eat poison. Like, you've been giving this motherfucker for, like, fucking 4 weeks now? Seeming to view this as a challenge, Alice furrowed her brow and slowly brought the massive noodles to her mouth. It was a little salty and ugly to look at, but it didn't taste that bad. It didn't taste all that bad. If anything, it was actually pretty good. Told you.
一つ聞きたいんだけど。
I saw that one coming from a mile away. So, I want to ask you something. Sojiro put down his chopsticks and turned to speak to Alice.
実際の話、魔術師の話はともかくとして、青崎はまだ誰にも手を出してないんじゃないか。
Be honest with me. Mage or not. Aoki hasn't actually taken a life yet, has she? Alice looked up quietly at the sudden question. She had been inspecting Sojiro's meal, but now she looked straight at him.
おかしなことを聞くのね、しずきくんは。
Well, that's a rather odd question, Suzuki.
アリスには悪いけど、これは青崎本人には聞きようのないことだから。言いたくなければ答えないでくれ。
Yeah, I know. I hate to ask you, but it's just not something I feel comfortable asking Ozaki directly. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Alice didn't respond. Sojiro resumed eating, not seeming disappointed. Alice stared blankly at him, slurping his noodles. After much hesitation, she replied,
しずきくんの言う通り、青子はまだ人を殺したことはないわ。
No. Just like you said, Aoko hasn't killed anyone yet.
その行為自体は何回かこなしてはいるけれど。
She has been involved in that sort of thing multiple times, though. Alice's response was slow and measured. Sojiro still looked troubled. But not at the conversation that we're having. Rather, he looked apologetic towards Alice. He said she didn't have to answer if she didn't want to. But Alice kept talking despite the face he was making.
しずきくんが見た公園での出来事が青子にとって初めての殺人行為よ。あいにく相手は人形だったけど。
The day you saw us in the park was the first time Aoko had ever killed anything. That was just a puppet, though. Sojiro silently nodded. Alice narrowed her eyes at him suspiciously.
まるで初めから分かっていた素振りね。
It almost seems like you knew this all from the beginning.
そうじゃな。いや、そうなのかな。
I mean, to be fair, he was the only one that saw you in the park that night, so I mean, it seems pretty obvious. And then that's when Aoko was trying to kill him, and she fought the puppet that looked like her, and we still haven't gotten her red hair yet, which is a bummer. No, not well, maybe.
たまにその手のセリフを言うけど、何か違う気がしたんだ。だから多分、青崎はまだ人殺しというのを体験していないんじゃないかって。
She just says stuff like that sometimes, but it's never felt like she's ever actually killed anyone before.
でもまあ、そんなことよりもっと確かなのは。
But more than that, I guess the best evidence is
しずきくんが今生きているということね。
the fact that you're still alive. Sojiro chuckled at Alice's stellar response. Exactly. There would have been more clear cut that night if Aoko had actually killed someone before. Sojiro had been dead before he ever even saw her face. For better or for worse, Aoko remained inexperienced in spite of her ruthlessness and decisiveness. Sojiro relaxed his shoulders. His stern face gradually returned to its normal carefree state. Then,
でもそんなことは関係ないわ。
but even so, none of that really matters.
あの子はそのあたりが異常だから。行為は理性に、経験は知識でたやすく補ってしまう。
That's just the way she is. She acts with reason and uses her knowledge to make up for any inexperience she might have.
そうね。青子はその気になれば迷うことなく人の命に手を出せる。しずきくん風に言うのならだけど。
Suzuki, I think if she really felt like it, she could take another person's life, as you put it. And with that, Alice went back to twirling noodles around her fork. She looked like she was having fun, Sojiro's thought as he ruminated over what she had just said. She was rational enough to accept herself despite acting against social or society's morals, and possessed an intellect that exceeded even the confidence gained through experience. Had Aoko had been raised to utilize her logic and reason to forge reality from fiction? If that was the case, then perhaps they really were different from Sojiro.
すまない。こんなことを聞いたのは、青崎には内緒にしておいてくれないか。
I'm sorry, but can you please not tell Aozaki that I asked you this? Sojiro seemed serious, as if he really regretted asking. Alice's expression remained unchanged, but she had never intended on saying anything to Aoko anyway.
ありがとう。なんだか、アリスには内緒話ばかり溜まっていくね。
Thank you. I'm not sure why, but I seem to have a lot of secret conversations with you. Sojiro went back to eating its food. Though Alice had still only had a single bite, it was already scraping his clean.
そういえば青崎にも聞いたんだけど、アリスと青崎はいつもああなのか？
I already asked Aozaki this, but the two of you always get along like that? Sojiro has suddenly decided to change the topic of conversation. His new topic was the rather cold and dry relationship between Aoko and Alice. Aoko said the relationship was normal, but maybe Alice had a different opinion.
会話が少ないことを言っているのなら、そうなるわ。
If you're talking about how we rarely talk to each other, that's just what happens.
けど、別に不便じゃないから。
It's convenient. It isn't something that bothers us. Alice was still twirling noodles with her fork as she gave her a concise answer. Around and around the noodles went, but none made it into her mouth.
不便じゃないって、そういうの仲がいいって言わないんじゃないのか。
What do you mean it's convenient? Do you mean that you're friends?
私と青子の仲が良くないと、しずきくんは困るの？
Would it make things difficult for you if we didn't get along? Sudro swallowed his words at Alice's perplexed reply. It would, actually, but he wasn't sure how to respond when asked so directly.
いや、なんかこっちの考え方が悪かったみたいだ。もうその話題には触れないことにしたから忘れてくれ。
No. Maybe I was just thinking about it the wrong way. I promise not to bring it up again, so just forget I asked.
それより、アリス。
More importantly, Alice. Sudro gave Alice a piercing stare that was more intense than any time they had talked before. Alice was taken slightly aback at the unusual intense look in his eyes. Her face became slightly flushed out of nervousness. Nobody besides Aoko had ever stared at her like this before. Whether or not he noticed, Sudro waited a few moments before speaking slowly and with complete conviction.
それ、食べないなら欲しいんだけど。
If you're not going to eat that, do you mind if I have it? An awkward silence followed.
悪いけど、これ、私のだから。
Sorry, this is mine. Oh, damn, she actually was like, nah, I'm actually going to eat this because I'm fucking starving, homeboy. Suzuki had cooked it, sure. But Alice wasn't wrong. He made it for her after all. There was a slight tinge of anger in her voice, but even she wasn't sure why it was there.
そうだね。少し意地汚かった。
You're right. Sorry. I shouldn't have asked. Sojiro plopped himself down on the sofa. This must have looked particularly pathetic to Alice since she had responded with,
その、材料はもう残ってないの？
Are there any ingredients left to cook some more? She quickly covered her mouth. Apparently she had surprised even herself. It was quite unusual for her to speak about something like that.
残ってないよ。青崎の分も作っちゃったから。
Nope. I used everything and made some for Ozaki as well. Sojiro stared a bit Sojiro stared a bit regretfully at Alice's plate as he responded. Alice could have just let it go, but for some reason she felt the need to speak up again.
青子なら、眠っているけど。
But Aoko is still sleeping.
いや、もうすぐ起こすから。起きた後で作らされるより、一緒に作っておいた方が楽だしね。
Yeah, but I'm going to wake her up soon. And she said... Well, and she had told me to make her something anyway.
と、もうすぐ1時か。ちょうどいい。行って起こしてくるよ。
Speaking of which, it's almost 1 o'clock. I'll go and wake her up now.
青子は、起こしたら殺すって言ってたけど。
Didn't she say she'd kill you if you woke her up? Alice wasn't sure why Sojiro was willing to take such a risk. Sojiro agreed, but started walking anyway.
でもさ、今起こしておかないと、やっぱり後で殺される運命にあると思うんだ。
Maybe so. But I feel like if I don't wake her up now, she's going to end up killing me later anyway. His words were surprisingly affectionate. There you go. Goddamn. I know how to speak, guys, please. Leaving Alice with that, Sojiro headed to Aoko's room. Alice watched them leave in silence before taking another bite of the stir-fried noodles. Glancing at the door to the hallway to make sure nobody was coming, she took another bite. She repeated that process many times before finishing her food. It was then that she heard Aoko's wrath coming from the second floor. Alice stood up and began solemnly clearing the table, feeling a bit sorry for what Sojiro was dealing with. She knew she really didn't have to, but she felt like this was at least what she could do for him. She never really expected to feel this way. But he cooked for her, and it was surprisingly good. Almost enough to make her forget how bad he was making. What the fuck? Almost enough to make her forget how bad he was at making tea. He's like, you can cook, but you can't make tea, motherfucker. All right, there we go. Nice. Looks like we finished off this episode. So let's save. Okay, let's go back. Let's go to the archive real quick before we go into the next episode. So let's see here. We got... How the hell do you say that shit? Oh, okay, there's one last thing here. So we got whiteboard and the Carnegie case. Is that how you said that? The Carnegie case? I think so. Well, I think I might do a separate episode on those two books there, because I don't want to happen, you know, I don't want what happened last time where I'm fucking going an hour in thinking it's gonna be a quick 30 minutes. But it wasn't. But yeah, that's gonna be it for you guys. I think I'll do these books next time. That way we could get some more background on what's going on in the game here, because they do add these, you know, those books that are in the archives actually do add, you know, more to it. But there we go. That's going to be it for you this episode, you guys. Next time we're going to be on episode Scar Red, whatever that means. So hopefully you guys did enjoy, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's your boy White Album. I'll see you guys next time.